I realized something when doing inner alchemy healing that they are not you, they are circulating. So when you're healing your body, you think of it as you think of it as your body. So let's say something happened to your body. To you specifically, that would be your personal stuff. But your body in general has commonalities between, obviously, other humans. And certain events happen at times during your life. And these events are also common between people. They, as they're circulating, get stuck on you. You are the container. Yet in its complexity, it also contains memory of events past. And they hold an emotion. That emotion may or may not have a memory attached to it anymore. Or I mean that you may be consciously separated from the memory, but the memory is retained at the place in the body. So when you consciously revisit that place, it reactivates what emotional past happened at that place. If it's something that you've been separated from consciously, then usually involves a lot of pain, probably. But it could just be something mildly uncomfortable. It depends on what it is, what it was, and why you were rejecting it. That sounds harsh, but that's the total conclusion, is that essentially it's you that you're rejecting, not them. They are just getting caught in the part that is, as others have said it, undealt with emotion. So if you're able to go there consciously and deal with whatever is there, you can essentially neutralize it to where you basically have to just face it or see it, but on a feeling level. You have to face it with your feeling, not just with your conscious. In other words, it's more than just recognition. You actually have to accept the feeling. And almost always there will be something in front of the real feeling that's not the real feeling. There's almost always something, some reason why you were rejecting it in the first place. And some people call that an illusion. That's not necessarily the illusion, but it acts like a mask over what is behind it. And what's behind it is you. specifically you feeling some kind of pain. And once you get to that place, there is nothing to do, and everything just automatically becomes basically. Like, it's only before that it doesn't become because you were rejecting it for, some other reason. So it's when you get over the reason for why you were not going there consciously in the first place. And sometimes if the pain, I guess, is bad enough, you'll deny even that the pain was that you're even not going there. You won't even realize that you're not going there, because you won't effectively even be accounting it in your reality. But you'll find if you go inward with your consciousness, you'll find all kinds of things which seem to stand in the way. Not just pain, but things which don't feel like anything. Blank spots. Or just places where there's an emotional turmoil. These things basically become activated by the circulation of them when you focus your consciousness, because they're following you. And the inward path is the way to the human soul, and it's endless. The human body outwardly receives an illusory deception that you think is real, so you end up acting according to what you thought was real, even if it's just an illusion. And what the illusion is everything that you see. And everything that you feel is what is actually real to you. It's what you actually are. Or what I mean is, feeling is how you connect to you. And without feeling, you would not be able to connect to you. There would be no you. Feeling is life, and it creates all of the difference. Without life, there would be just blankness. And the point of existing, I guess, is existing in relative love, peace, some kind of balance, right? Because, frankly, without that, no one would want anything. So the endeavor becomes to heal your experience, which is your vessel. So you can go inward consciously to create a better experience for yourself by facing painful situations and other things, but mostly it's going to involve painful things. That's usually, just call it the universal debt, essentially. That's the Greek way of looking at it. the Greek initiates. But some people call this process healing your inner child, but some other people call it shadow work, and it's all the same thing. It's just you that is still in your memory. It's still in the etheric body of your body. It becomes alive again through your consciousness. And even this so-called physical body is only an illusion. So it doesn't really exist in the way you would normally think. But even so, just because it may or may not be this or that doesn't mean that you're still not, as a consciousness, dealing with certain emotions concerning different places in your body. And the inner alchemy becomes nothing more than the identification of emotion and the rectification of emotion through identity. You have to correctly identify it. If you don't, it will persist. And it will take a certain strength of will, of inner will, or your ability to project your intention inward in order to address sensitive areas in your body. And it might seem strange to say that the only problems are in your body, but that's just where they're registered, because that's where the circulation is happening. The so-called blockages or problems or whatever you want to call them, the actual constriction could be in how you think. And the blockage is just something that is maybe threatening the balance of the way that you think. So maybe you find an excuse to not go looking. But I don't want to talk about all the ways people pawn their problems off, which include everything from black magic to mild irritation, right? Because, you know, what else other than a lot of pain can drive somebody to doing stuff like black magic in order to get someone else to feel their pain instead of them feeling that pain. To just mild irritation, which is, oh, I can ignore it. Nevertheless, it still creates resistance of some kind. And over time, your body, the longer things are ignored, your body will store up, just like a dam in a creek. It will collect things. But there is a kind of an interesting phenomenon that happens when you go in consciously and explore a feeling, and that is it reverses. It's not it that's reversed, and it's not you that is reversed, though. But the phenomenon is reversal, where you'll feel something painful, for example, or you'll feel, painful. And as you're going toward it, there's like this space, right? There's a space where as you're traveling toward it, there's a space where it will basically, they essentially is what's screaming out, right? They are saying, we're fine. Like, they are saying, like, they're you, right? So they're saying it's fine, right? Because you were formerly ignoring it. So they're saying it's fine. But at the same time, you're going toward pain, which is it's basically a dichotomy. And that's the reversal phenomena I was talking about. It basically has a backwards effect, where because it's you separated from you, it's them and you, right? So because of the dual nature of emotion, the outward effect of that pain is because you've been saying it was fine, or just ignoring it, or saying whatever it is, right? They're saying the same thing that you were saying about it. So the emotion that you get from them, or the reaction that you get, is the reverse of whatever you were saying. And it's not in their voice either. It's in the voice of any demon that wants to inhabit that space, because it's unclaimed until you go in there and face the pain. And the fact that demons can inhabit you, or inhabit parts of you, parts of your rejected self, is the reason why they call it shadow work. And of course, it's not you necessarily intentionally rejecting yourself. It's just, that's the way, because it's you, that's just the way it is. It doesn't feel that way because of all of the illusions. But you basically are like, well, how could I do that to myself, right? And you couldn't do that to yourself, right? Or you wouldn't normally. It just is one of those things where you get separated in consciousness. That's where it comes down to. The consciousness is what forgets things, leaves things, picks things up, makes new things. That's what advances forward. Essentially, it's what sees. But of course, this seeing is an inward seeing. It's not the seeing that you do with your physical eyes, because those are only receiving the illusion. But the seeing that you're doing internally has to do with awareness. You become conscious of the negative effect of them saying it's fine. Essentially, that's a generalization. So, to bring this back to the beginning, they are just circulating, and they can do nothing. They are you when you said or did anything. And according to that, they are circulating. So when they're coming through an area, it's them versus older them or older you. It's them versus older you, which is also older you. But they're not actually one-to-one like that. They are you now, and your body is you then. And of course, you then might be at your birth or when you were a little kid or yesterday. And depending on the amount of circulation you've been doing in specific areas or working with specific things is also dependent on how often certain things will be coming through. Well, relatively. We're talking not necessarily if you're dealing with persistent things. Because if you're dealing with something that is forcing itself on you persistently, it's still you, but there's a difference between sabotage and whether it's self-inflicted or not, which, let's not get into the technical details of that. But if it's sabotage, it will be reoccurring the damage, not normally like a past event is damage, which is something that doesn't actually go anywhere or do anything, but you can be sabotaged in between on that space between. That's where you have to sometimes fight your demons. And your demons, of course, are just the negative aspects of desire. Like, you say something that you want, for example, and the next thing you know, all of the things that you said that you don't want start showing up. And the reason why is because you've already felt one side of that desire. Now the universe is just showing you the other side of that desire. So you have to balance those desires in some way. And it may be simple, or you might find some exploit for it. People are doing all kinds of weird and outlandish things. But ultimately, or a lot of the times, you're going to be basically countered. And you'll find yourself questioning whether you wanted what you wanted in the first place. And whether you even asked, you'll be like looking back, like how did I get all of this stuff all of a sudden? And it can become exceedingly difficult for someone not aware that emotions are dual nature like this, and not just not aware of intellectually of, or consciously of this, but someone who is not experienced in understanding the correlation between the time when you say, I want something, and the time when the negative of that want shows up. Without having this fundamental experience of being able to correlate these events, these two particular events, without the ability to understand, or not just, anybody has the ability to understand it. It's just without a particular experience where those things are correlated, then the natural reaction can be to go into a wanting spiral, a spiral of, well, I want this to get out of that, so I want this next thing to get out of this other negative thing that just showed up, and even more negative things start showing up the more, because you're wanting more things and expressing that in some way. And so you end up obviously running from yourself, and I guess this is a journey that most people go through fairly naturally, especially if they have guidance from their parents or someone. And when you've sufficiently twisted yourself up, I guess you call it quits at some point, I guess. Obviously there's a lot of different scenarios. But let's say I want something that's easy to get, like I've got some money in my pocket, I could go down to the store and get something that I want. And so the question is, where's the negative of that want? And the answer to that question is, the negative of that want is in your money. And you traded your time for it, or whatever you traded for it. So in other words, you don't know the specific negative most of the time with all of the small things, because it's been captured by the system. And the real answer is why you wanted that thing in the first place, even if it was something that you could spend money for. that's the real answer, because that the system is actually predicting why you wanted that thing, and they're rectifying those emotions through their system. But then, let's say you want something that you can't go buy with money. That's where people find it difficult, because until now, the system has rectified all of the negative aspects of things, and they haven't had to do anything, really. They have just been relying on the system, essentially, which I guess most people do. But if you want something, then you have to understand the negative of that thing. And you have to understand that the negative of that thing will also appear in your reality before the dream becomes also real. And it could be something out of anger. You could say, "Oh, I want them to shut up," or "I want, whatever." So the obvious is not true, which would be, "Oh, that means they would just." I mean, the opposite is them not shutting up. And so because you wanted that, and then of them, and then they did the opposite, that was the so-called shadow appearing in them. If they hold higher spiritual rank, they could just walk away and not participate. But in general, for people of the same caliber arguing, that's how the dynamic works. So someone doing something that you do not want them to do is the universe telling you the other side of what you want. And this particular dynamic has been misconstrued as needing control, but it's not the need for control. It's actually it's the desire to not be irritated or not be in pain, paired with the unawareness the unawareness of the fact that, or of the fact of exactly how they're actually causing it. And in fact, the ones who misconstrue it as the need for control are actually not in control, because they too lack the awareness, but they are blaming the same situation on something else other than it is. Anyways, proper balance is the goal, and allowing yourself to receive negative emotion is difficult but necessary to heal.